So welcome. My name is Carmela from Cornerstone Sales Consulting. Today is episode 4. We're continuing the conversation about the M&A and RAs and how RAs can prepare. I am absolutely delighted to have my friend Richard Chen again as my guest. So thank you for making the time, Rich. And
Yeah, my pleasure.
you're so generous. We're focusing today on a very important topic, keeping clients confident and how advisors protect value during an M&A. In particular, we're focusing on clients because they are most critical part of any RIA sale. And the focus is on how advisors can protect revenue and retention during M&A. So, Rich, would love to hear your insights on this. I have 3 questions ready for you. But before I start asking, would you remind our viewers about your background?
Yeah, so I've been practicing attorney for 27 years. I own Brightstar Law Group, which is roughly serves around 350 advisors, and we do regulatory and compliance work as well as corporate work, including M&A work and business structuring for RIAs.
Wonderful. I hope uh, people will come and flock to you as
Thank
quick
you.
as possible. Of
Uh-huh.
course. So, first questions. How
Yes.
do buyers evaluate the client retention risk and how can advisors help reduce it? Because obviously there is always a moment of a stress or moment of concern during this particular time, a delicate period on how to, making sure that client retention stays 100% or close to it.
Well, I mean, buyers, I think, look at a variety of sort of data points when they're looking at sort of retention risk, including sort of the length of relationship the firm has with clients, as well as sort of the age of clients and various factors, right? I
Right.
don't think that from the advisor standpoint, sort of looking at M&A transactions sort of changes how they interact with clients. I do think that there are steps that they can take to mitigate risk when it comes to an actual M&A event. But I think, frankly, what an advisor, does, leading up to transactions really sort of, sort of speaks to, sort of where the firm is in terms of, so how good it is at actually sort of retaining clients. And of course, I think a lot of that involves ongoing communication with clients and making sure that they feel heard. And, that those are, sort of things that will show up in the statistics, right? When the buyers look at sort of how much the advisor is willing to, or sort of is likely to retain.
Yes, of course. It makes perfect sense
Mhm.
that open communication to ensure that that trust that has been built throughout the years
Sure.
will be retained by the clients themselves because they may be nervous. Alongside that, this is a great segue for me to ask next. What can the sales team, the client-facing teams, I should say, within an RA firm, what can they do to ensure their clients feel confident and secure through the process? Because let's face facts, anybody who is client facing, from sales team to compliance support to sales support, etc., they will probably hear questions, or they may sense something, so maybe they need to get ahead of anticipating clients concerns. So what can these teams do to ensure that actually the clients remain confident and secure through the process?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot they can do. I mean, I think sort of messaging to clients, sort of over time, even if they don't have a specific sort of goal of target in mind in terms of what they're going to do with the business, it helps to make sure that it's not completely out of the blue.
Right.
Of course, advisors may not always have visibility into that, but I would say that, at the point in time where it becomes clear that the transaction is going to go, through, typically after the signing of transaction documents, important to be prepared, right, for what client, sort of concerns might be. And of course, clients are concerned about how it disrupts their relationship with their existing advisor, and oftentimes their reassurances that in many cases that doesn't change, right? And but making sure that folks are out in front sort of communicating with clients and making sure that they get the proper sort of communication way that they'll be able to sort of receive it, and less of a shock the better, right, of course, but
Sure.
being prepared to answer the questions in terms of how does this affect me, right, how does this affect how I work with you, how does it affect what the firm can do for me, right? All things that they can prepare in advance and make sure that they have sort of responses ready for clients when, the time comes.
And my assumption is, like in any other type of similar circumstances, it's important to know who your clients are,
Uh,
understanding, right, where they're coming from,
Absolutely.
right,
Yeah.
which it goes
Yeah.
back to relationships.
Yeah, right. Because not all clients want to be communicated with the same way, or or will respond in the same way. And I think obviously it's helpful to understand sort of who your clients are and sort of how to best speak to them to sort of, sort of help them to navigate sort of any sort of potential sort of anxiety over sort of a change.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And this might sound like a redundant question, but I think it ties very well to what you just said. Are there ways or are there strategies that advisors can help demonstrate the value of the client relationships for a potential acquirer, potential buyer? What can advisors do to say company A looking to buy company B, the IRA? Is there anything they can do to demonstrate the value of the client relationships? And the reason I'm asking this is because I've heard different conversations on the topic. I've also been reading about it, and clearly, client relationships are extremely important, but as you know, you and I touched on this on the previous conversation. In the midst of going through the M&A process, due diligence, evaluation, etc., client relationships might not be viewed as important, as valuable. So, what can the advisors do to demonstrate to the buyer why there is value in retaining and having those client relationships?
So I think maybe sort of parsing out the terms. I mean, I think buyers absolutely believe that the client relationships are critical. I think maybe what you're perhaps getting at is sort of how they go about sort of cultivating that, right?
Correct, correct.
And so I mean, obviously, from a buyer standpoint, they want to make sure that there's a good sort of culture in place to nurture client relationships, to make sure that that there's a a culture in place that's receptive to being responsive to clients in a way that sort of the buyer sort of views being able not only to retain clients but to grow clients. So and so I think they definitely do look at culture, and they evaluate sort of how advisors are interacting with you know uh, folks internally as well as sort of their clients to make sure that there's a good fit. Oftentimes one of the harder things to evaluate, but still important. And buyers will go and visit the offices, right, to see the advisors in person. So it's
Of
important
course.
to make sure that that those folks are well positioned to uh, sort of continue the work. Once the buyers sort of close on the deal.
And I would imagine, and I don't know if you've come across in your experience, that first and foremost, the advisors themselves have to have a firm belief in building and maintaining the value of the client relationship. So they're playing an important role in being advocate for both the IRA, the clients, in the client relationships, and really working with the buyer to tie everything together.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. I mean, I think that the numbers will sort of bear that out, right? I mean, I think
Hmm.
frankly, if they're not good at doing that, then the retention rates just won't show up, right? So
Absolutely.
I think the numbers, that's where the numbers will really sort of speak to them. But I think it
Yeah.
is also important for buyers to understand style to make sure that it's a good reflection on their brand, right? Because they're acquiring a team that will actually represent their brand going forward. So they do want to represent, sort of their brand well in a way that's consistent with, sort of how they look at things.
That's right. And that ties into to what you mentioned last week about culture, right?
Right.
And during
Mhm.
that process, buyer has to absolutely kind of dive uh, in understanding where the RA cultures stands, or what makes that company unique or
Absolutely.
different, to make that M&A due diligence and valuation and thinking process more valuable and secure at the end of the day. Any final thoughts, Rich, that you might want to share?
No, just to emphasize, look, I mean, buyers look at quantitative factors, they look at qualitative factors. They do deep diligence, right? When they're actually
Hmm.
looking to bring on a new team to their platform. So, I think it's important for RAs to understand that. I mean, they're not, it's not something that you can really game the system, right? But I mean, I think it is important to understand that, buyers do focus on both quantitative and qualitative factors.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. Wonderful. At the end of the day, let's remember that advisors aren't just building relationships, they are protecting the firm's value in the eyes of the buyers at the end of the day. That's what it comes down to, right?
Right, right. Yeah, and that's how buyers look at it. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate it. That's all for me today. Thank you so much again for your insight. Until next time.